Hey YouTube, it's the Pied Piper.
Are you listening?
Shut up and sit down.
It's the Pied Piper.
It's my tail and I'm the other one.
Hey YouTube, it's the Pied Piper. This YouTube
thing, this YouTube situation. But I'm going to go into this a little bit more because I noticed some other things. I noticed that he drinks very regularly, all the time, like every day, every single night he drinks, which again is not a big deal for me. I think it's just like if you're getting drunk is the problem. And I don't know for sure if he ever got drunk every night, but I know there were several times that he was definitely drunk. And so that was a little bit of a red flag because although I'm a social drinker, I don't necessarily drink every single time I hang out. I don't have to. I kind of have a natural, I guess, drunk personality. So I don't need a drink, but he seemed to need one. I'm going to have to put that in my back pocket and maybe we can talk about that later, but let's power through. And so I kept doing that with different things that would come up as red flags. Like 3 weeks into just hanging out and seeing each other, he gives me a key. I don't even know if it was 3 weeks. It might have only been 2, but he gave me a key to his apartment. And I was like, wow, you're not getting a key to my apartment, but thanks. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I don't like to unnaturally speed up a relationship, and I don't like to unnaturally slow down a relationship. I'm all about going with the flow. So I looked at it like, okay, you're at this place and that's great. I'm at another place, that's great. And we will keep it this way. But in the back of my mind, there's still that idea like you need to be divorced. You are married still. And so that part of me couldn't really give him that because I needed him to be divorced. I needed him to be actually single. I had to make sure he was aware that I want to share emotions. I want to do that, but I need you to be single when I do that so that I feel like I have a safe place to fall. And so he would just get mad at that. And then I noticed some other things like he was very self-centered and I never understood it. Like if I told him, hey, I gotta get home, I've got stuff to do, he would monopolize my time and I'd end up putting things on the back burner because I'm trying to really give this a chance, and so I don't want to be unavailable. I want to be able to really give something a true chance. So I am neglecting things that I should have been doing, and he's doing everything he needs to do. And so it was just really weird. And again, this is like in hindsight a red flag because he should respect my time the same way I respected his time. But he didn't. He would get angry over the smallest things, but he had a hairpin trigger, I discovered. Like, he could go from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat. Everything could be roses, but then one minor thing, and he would have an attitude. And, even when I was expressing things about how I felt, he would turn the page and make it all about how he felt. So let's say I said something like, you know what, today's just a rough day for me. It's a rough day for me, too. And then he'd get mad, like I did something wrong. And then I would notice things like he would interrupt me in the middle of my sentences and then completely run over my thought. And then when I would try to speak, it was like he didn't care what I had to say. And that's a big deal for me, for any relationship. I need to feel like I'm heard just as much as they're heard. But again, I thought, okay, this is growing pains and maybe we're just trying to figure each other out. And I'm very big on giving things that chance to grow and work out some of the kinks. We're both adults, we're both older. You gotta work out stuff, and it's part of the learning curve when you're getting to know somebody, and that is still very true. But I think you really have to prepare yourself for red flags or pay attention to red flags, because sometimes those are things that, and not even just red flags, they are deal breakers. And some things that are deal breakers are a very big issue. I also noticed that he talked about his ex-wife, not the one that he was currently married to, but the one before that. He was talking about her a lot, and their relationship was a little closer than I expected a relationship to be with an ex-spouse. I learned later on, weeks later, that, they actually had tried to be in another together again, maybe a year ago, and it just didn't work out. But that kind of made me feel uncomfortable, but I was like, okay, whatever. You didn't end up together, so whatever, I can see that. You guys have kids together. I can see, maybe you really want to put your family back together. I can't hate on that, and that was before me, so let it ride. And then, I had learned, and I'm going to tell you guys this because I love you. I'm going to tell you this because I can't. I've gone to counseling. I think counseling is a great tool to check in with your star player, which is yourself, and just to do some maintenance on yourself. I think it's really good to have that that outlet to talk to someone. And so I had learned one of the things that I'm very bad at is setting clear-cut boundaries with people. And so sometimes people would, be given a little bit more of a foothold into my life than they deserved at that time frame. And so I need to keep boundaries in place until I feel like I have that trust. And trust to me is a very big deal in a relationship because I've had a really hard life and things have happened, and I want to make sure that the person that I'm divulging, my stuff to, the person that I'm putting in my world, I need to be able to trust them. I need to feel safe with them enough to be wholly me. And I wanted to do that right, especially in my 30s. I want to make sure that I do a relationship the right way. I'm not trying to date forever. And I hate dating. Oh, what's your favorite color? It's like every couple weeks you're asking somebody what their favorite color is. It's so annoying. So yeah, I want to date, but I want to get into a real relationship, but I want to do it right. So I was really trying very hard to make sure that this was done right. So I set up boundaries, very clear boundaries, until he was divorced, really, is what I was waiting for, is for him to be divorced. But we're going to fast forward out of nowhere after we've had some ups and downs, and again, I think it's just growing pains. And so I can't really say these all suck, but this growing pains, and he out of nowhere text messages me one morning and is like, good morning, how are you? And because I was sick or wasn't feeling well, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And out of nowhere he tells me I'm going to Utah. I was like, okay. Because it was weird. I don't know how we got on that, but okay. I didn't understand what his deal was. And this whole time that we've been talking to each other, he's been trying to make me feel like he would be there for me, like he was somebody I could trust, somebody I could depend on in any time of need that I might have. And in a lot of ways, he did show me hey, I'm here for you, and I want to be here for you. So I really was trying really hard to do this the right way. So when he told me that, I was a little annoyed because I didn't understand what that had to do with the price of beans in China. And then he explains to me that he's going to go to Utah because, as I said, he was ex-military, and somebody that he, I guess, was in his same unit or something had passed away, several people had, and he had a very good, commemorative tattoo of that, and I really appreciated that. And I have dated a lot of guys in the military, so I was like, okay, what's the deal? And then he tells me that, I guess, this gentleman this guy that passed away from his unit, his widow, which I wouldn't have had a problem with. And please, disclaimer, it wasn't that he wanted to visit this woman. It was more so that it had been 12 years since this person in his unit had passed away. And it had been, from what he stated, at least 6 years or 5 years of talking to her and his widow, and I guess on Facebook or whatever, and they had this group. And so he's been kind of talking to her, and she was obviously widowed with children, and he had a very strong desire to be there for this woman, which I applaud and have seen nothing wrong with. My issue is that since this person has passed away, he has been married twice. He's had children in this time frame. A lot of different stuff has happened, and he never felt the need to go visit this woman until suddenly, out of nowhere, one day, when he was supposed to be in a relationship with me. And I'm thinking, okay, how are you trying to be in a relationship with me and you're going to go visit another woman and you really want to do that? And let me preface this by saying he did ask me one time to go with him when he met this woman, because it would be the first time he was meeting her after being, communicating with her for so long. And I had agreed, and I was actually super flattered that he would even think to let me be a part of something like that. So I was so honored and looked at it thank you for even wanting to be open like that. It encouraged me to be open with him like that in several ways too, because I felt okay, if you're going to be that open and you're going to share that part of yourself with me, then I can do nothing but try to reciprocate that. So he tells me he's going there, and I felt, kind of like a donkey kick to the chest, because he was also saying, I'm not going with you anymore. I'm doing this on my own. And I was simply like, what is the reason that you need to do this by yourself now? Because this woman's been single for 12 years. And not to say that you feel the loss of your loved one less after 12 years. That's not what I'm saying, and please don't take it that way. It was just odd that out of nowhere this came up. Well, it turns out it wasn't really out of nowhere, that they had been talking or I guess communicating on Facebook. And my issue was, how do you do all of that and talk to me every day? Literally, from the day we met, we spent a lot of time together, and so you are with me all the time, and literally not a 5 hours go by without a text from him, and he was just so much everything I like when it comes to being overwhelmingly interested in me. So I was on board, but then he never mentioned the fact that he was still communicating with this person, and then he didn't mention several different things about what was going on in his life when I wasn't around. And it kind of was he didn't, I don't know how to say this, and I don't want to make it sound weird, but it just felt like I wasn't being included in his actual life. Here I am trying to reciprocate and expose, different layers of myself to him, and he's encouraging me to do so, but then he kind of has a whole shroud over his life that he just wasn't talking to me about. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're innocently communicating with this woman, why would you leave it out of every conversation? Why are you leaving it out that you are doing this kind of stuff? We had gotten to an argument even one weekend, and he really should have probably worked it out with me, but instead he went out to a bar. But I had thought he was just at home. And not to say that he has to answer to me, like I'm not his mom, but it was just kind of weird. Like I didn't find out until later on, like, oh, he actually was out. So here I am thinking, like, really contemplating how to make this work, and he's like out drinking at the bar. And so it was just odd. So then fast forward, he's in college, which I think is totally admirable. I'm very into education, obviously, I'm sure you guys know, and I very much appreciate a man who's trying to better himself. So he's been doing college, and he had a trip for his college, he stated, like some group that he's in because of his college, and so he went out of town. And the first night he went out of town, he was calling me and text messaging me pretty regularly that whole first day of him being out of town. And then the next day, he text messaged me, not as often, but the previous day had been like a huge issue happened with, I guess, somebody who was his teammate in this group for his school or whatever, and they got drunk and like a whole bunch of drama happened. And so obviously I'm going to be like concerned because I'm worried like he's getting into some drama. I hope that this other person is not ruining his big chance to do something with himself. So I was genuinely concerned. So the next day, I don't really hear from him all that much, but he does call me, and he calls me pretty early in the day. He was in Texas, so he called pretty early in the day the next day, and he ends up letting me go off the phone because I guess he was going to go to lunch. I think it was lunch or something, and so he was going to go talk to somebody about that, and he's like, hey, I'll call you back a little later. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I despise when people say things like, see you later, call you later, and then don't do it. If you don't intend to actually back that up with actions, just say goodbye. You don't have to pretend like you're going to talk to me later. Like, just say goodbye. I accept that. Don't say, I'll call you later. But he didn't call me that whole night. And because he was out of town for school, even though I knew that this thing that he was doing shouldn't occupy his whole night, I did try to give him some room to breathe because I'm like, hey, you could just be doing whatever. I don't know. I'm trying to be like a really cool girl. But I did notice the fact that since we met, he has not gone 5 hours, 8 hours. Probably 8 hours is even a stretch to say that he had gone 8 hours without texting me, and he usually was in regular contact with me, and this is for over a month, like a month and a half. So he was just very much always in constant communication with me throughout the day, which again, I'm not a huge phone person, so I don't need to talk on the phone a lot. I don't even need to text a lot, but every once and again, just to let me know you're still alive, especially because there was drama the previous night that he called me while he was like wasted, and he was like even telling me he loved me like while he was wasted. I never believe drunk people when they say stuff like that, but it did hit me a little bit in the feels. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't say it back because, like I said, I couldn't give him those things until he was divorced. But I did notice that he also said them when he was drunk, so I don't put a whole lot of weight into that. And so I really was hoping that he didn't get drunk again and, have something bad happen again. So it was kind of weird, though, that I didn't hear from him for the rest of the day. And it was like 16 hours. Like, it wasn't just like a little bit. It was a long time. And so I had texted him like later on in the evening that same day that he was supposed to call me back, though. And I said, hey, I really hope you're having a good evening. I haven't heard from you. Hope everything's cool. Usually I can see, because we have the same cell phone provider, that he read the text or it was delivered and he saw it. But I didn't see that on this one. And so I just looked after a while because I hadn't heard from him. And that was just like very different for him with me to not say anything to that. So I was like, okay, this is weird. And then the very next day at like 2 o'clock Texas time, I text him and I say like, hey, I don't even think it was 2 o'clock. It was actually probably like 1 or 12. I can't remember. I think it was 1. But I texted him and I said, hey, I hope you're having a good time and I hope you're okay. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to assume that you just got really busy and you haven't been able to respond. So, and I waited and he didn't respond to that text either. I was just like, this is weird. What's going on? He's never like out of communication like this. I don't get what's happening. So I wait after that. I don't hear anything. So then I fire off a couple of memes to him, thinking I was being cute. And they weren't horrible memes. It's not like I created the memes. I didn't make them. So like I sent those, and finally, after like 4 hours of not hearing anything, no response, and this is not 4 hours only. This is literally almost a whole 24 hours now. I've heard 0 things from him. My texts weren't read. They were all showing it delivered, but not even read. And so then as I checked my phone, and I don't even remember if I was checking it specifically for him, but I just picked up the phone, saw the open text, and I was like, oh, he read it, finally. And so I just fired off a text and I said, I was very worried. But I see you're okay. I'm done now. Didn't hear from him. He didn't respond. He didn't say anything. 0 things. He didn't say anything at all. I was floored. I was like, what the heck is going on? So then, because I don't like being a crazy girl, and I know that if I let myself, I could be, I just like immediately muted our text, so then that way I wasn't constantly going back to the phone, and I just like let it sit. I haven't heard from him since. And I was like, wow. So then all these red flags that I ignored, intentionally trying to give him more benefit of the doubt, start going through your head, when you do that. When you finally like put it all together, you're like, wait a second. This, and this, and this, and this, and nothing. And it was just very odd behavior from him. It was just kind of weird because he's planning to go to Utah to see this woman that I felt uncomfortable with, and I just told him that I felt uncomfortable with it. But not because I was trying to get him to not go, but I wanted him to hopefully take my feelings into consideration, which he didn't. And I'll backtrack because I'll let you know that when I finally did open up and tell him that I was uncomfortable with it, he told me, okay, I'm going to cancel. Actually, I don't even have to cancel because I haven't even told anybody that I'm actually going to go down there, so I just won't go. And not that I was like, okay, yeah, don't go. I just wanted to give us time to be able to really talk about it, but we were heated, and so we didn't talk about it. Then when I talked to him later that same night, he tells me that, he kept texting me though and saying like, I gotta cancel, I'm gonna cancel, if you want me to, I'll cancel. And then finally when we talk again, he mentions he's having to cancel, and I was like, well, why would you have to cancel? Like, you didn't tell anybody that you were gonna go. And he said, no, actually I did. And I'm like, what? Well, it turns out while I was angry and just really hurt that he wasn't even considering like how I might feel, he went and communicated with this woman, like intentionally reached out to her and planned the trip, knowing I was uncomfortable and knowing that we hadn't even like landed on anything, like we were still talking about it, and he planned the trip completely. And I was hurt. Wow. So you didn't care at all how I felt. And it was like a running theme for us though, him not really caring about my feelings ever and being ruthless with my feelings. And so I'm like, okay. And I even tried to get over it though. And then he's out of town, and then suddenly I don't hear from him anymore, and he just like ghosts me. Yeah, I still have a key to his apartment, but I'm not going to use that key. And yeah, we had not been talking long, and so the relationship was definitely not cemented, but he had made several mentions about him wanting me to move in with him, and that he was always going to be there for me, and that he was going to be this person in my life. As much as I hate to say it, because I do pride myself on being pretty jaded, but he was saying all that stuff, and I believed him. And I think it started seeping in that maybe that was possible. So I'm overlooking, red flags and believing some of the kind words, and then it turns out like he just ghosts me. And then I had to ask myself, why are you upset that he ghosted you? And I don't even know if the reason I'm upset is because he was not true to who he said he was, or was it because I wanted to be the one that ended?
Whoa, deep.
But really, one of the things that I've done in relationships is that I get so invested that I forget that I am an active participant in the relationship. And if I'm part of it, is this something that I want? I get so invested that I stop looking at what I actually want. I'm so there that it becomes more about what they want. And then I'm thinking to myself, did I even like him? Because he was really mean to me on several occasions, to the point where I was like, wow, like, you're cruel. Then, of course, my ego comes out, my vanity. Look at me, look at you. You can't ghost me, I'm ghosting you. And I think we all have a tendency to do that. It's like our ego kicks in. In the long run, it's like he lied about who he was as a person. He lied about how committed he was to the idea of being with me. He lied from the very beginning. And not that he necessarily lied, but he was very misleading in the beginning. Although I was willing to overlook that stuff to get to know him, I discovered that maybe I should have taken that as more of a red flag, that I should have taken a step back because he didn't, check these boxes on this list, and then he didn't check even my superficial boxes, didn't check my emotional boxes. Like, there were so many areas where things were off, and I was still trying so hard to see into that. And not because I was desperate, not because I wanted to be in a relationship or had to be in a relationship. So yes, I do want to be in a relationship. Do I have to be in one? No, I'm a great company. I can be single. But was that what I was looking for? Is that what I'm looking for? No. That's kind of what you have to ask yourself. I want a companionship, but I can't be with somebody who doesn't care about me. And yeah, he said all the right things and did all the right things at times. But then there were times where he was really cruel. There was one time that he told me straightforward that I could never hurt him because apparently he would never let me that close, which should have been a red flag. At the time, I should have been like, wait a second, you're not even open enough to the idea to let me hurt you. And I know that sounds like, why do you want to hurt? I didn't want to hurt. And you should never want to hurt somebody you're with. But when you are open and you are vulnerable and you are with someone, the whole idea behind that is if you want love and you want all those things, you have to also take the risk that that person might be able to hurt you. But you would hope that they care enough about you that if they do inadvertently hurt you, they will fix it and they will try to do better. I'm not above that. He should have been above that. And when he said that I could never hurt him, I should have took that as a red flag. I should have took it as a red flag when if there was physical attraction things that were off. You know what? I have a new idea about dating. I'm not going to date people who are outside of what I want, especially if I meet them online. I've got to do better with that because I put my heart and soul into things and then I get crushed afterwards. I don't even know for sure if I cared necessarily. It was just the idea that I was willing to care. I was open to care. He was moving so fast and doing all these things. Those should have been not only red flags. I obviously knew they were red flags. I'm well old enough to know that moving that fast is kind of a red flag. You know, he wanted me to meet his kids and stuff. And not that I didn't want to. I love kids, but it was the idea that it was so quick. Not even talking to each other for 30 days before he wanted that. And then not talking even for 60 days before he was still wanting that and wanting to move in together. There's something fundamentally off when that happens. And not to say that you can't have all those things really quickly, but it has to feel that way for both people. And what was before easy to talk to him about anything, it became really hard to talk to him about. Not only did it become really hard, but it became really hard really quick. In life, when you are in a relationship and over a span of time, you're going to have your peaks and your, valleys in your relationship, but it definitely shouldn't be before there's even 45 days in. He said all the things that I would want to hear, and he heard all of the ways that I had been hurt, and he basically used those as weapons. And I should have just been like, you know what, you don't check all these boxes. Had I known you were separated and not divorced, even in the very beginning, once I found that out, I should have just done away with the whole idea. He still hasn't even tried to get in touch with me to explain what happened. And he was out of town for a whole week. And then he's supposedly going to Utah to go be with this woman. And to me, first of all, that's one too many women in a relationship. So I've got his current wife, his ex-wife, this other woman. That's 4 of us. That's way too many queens in the castle. So what does this all mean? What is the gist of all of this? It's just to be very cautious when you are doing something like online dating. If somebody's description of themselves matches the person in the pictures, big red flag if it does. Men are very bad at describing themselves when they're catfishing because they don't remember to use the catfish picture description of themselves. Instead, they use only the description of themselves that they're used to giving or they're used to seeing in the mirror every day. But another thing you should do, pay a lot of attention to what people say they're looking for. I don't know if every website says what they're looking for, but I think most of them do. And they'll say things like, oh, are you looking for a relationship or casual dating or, nothing serious, yada, yada, yada. It gives you all these great options so you can choose exactly what you're looking for. So if you are a woman who's looking to eventually be in a committed relationship, obviously you're not saying the first guy you meet you want to jump into a marriage. But your ultimate goal is you're dating to eventually find someone that is serious about you and you get into a serious relationship. And I think some websites even say looking to marry or looking for someone to marry. I don't know. I would never pick that one because I'm like, okay, that's a little presumptuous. But I have discovered that men do this thing, and this is how you kind of can tell when somebody is just trying to get a booty call or a one-night stand. Now, if you're into a booty call or a one-night stand or an FWB situation, then it's like, okay, great, it works. You guys match up. But if you don't want that and you look at their profile and it says looking for friends to hang out, that is a red flag. First of all, why are you on a dating site looking for friends? All your friends have to be female? Is that what you're saying? That you only deal in female friends? Because you can't advertise to females and dudes. Either you're a man interested in other men or you're a man interested in females. And if you're a man interested in females, you definitely aren't on a dating site looking for your next best friend. And I don't mean your best friend because your lover is your best friend and everything. No, I mean a best friend. Like somebody you go kick it with and is your wing woman. That's not how you make friends. If you can't make friends any other way but to get on a dating site, that says a lot about you. and about them. So ladies, look at that, and what they say is what they mean. And if they don't take the time to fill out anything, even 2 sentences, to me in the about you part, that is BS. If you don't put anything down there and you're like, ask me later, I look at that like you just aren't really looking for anything. Even if you say you want something serious, you can't mean that if you don't even care enough to even say one thing about yourself. Granted, people aren't always great at speaking about themselves. You can't be so bad at speaking about yourself that you can't even say, I like dogs, something. Don't necessarily judge so harshly quick off the bat, but I would say if you have deal breakers, really pay attention to those. Do not ignore them. You also should not ever deal with somebody who's kind of narcissistic. You know, when they make everything about them, even if they hurt you, it's still about them. That's a problem. I'm definitely old enough to know better. But I feel like if I didn't share this, you could be out there making the same mistakes. My next adventures in dating is definitely going to be my whole lowered expectations series, or my defining moments. And then I'm also going to do one, if you guys want, about how my relationship with my best friend ended up going so wrong. Like, subscribe, comment, share.
Share any way you can.
Smoke signal, Morse code,
carrier pigeon, telegraph,
2 cans of string.
beeper, pager, they still got pager. Snail mail. Tell somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that, hey, Piper has a new video.
Shut up and sit down.